if I've got good weather or a good moon and the wind's wrong, but I've got my setup is right and I trust my ozonics, I'm going to go.
Got it.
Even
Okay.
if the wind's
That
wrong.
makes sense.
That's how much I trust my plan.
The 11th commandment is more than a name. It's a creed. Built on decades of chasing big game across the world, giant whitetails, faith, family, and a passion for passing on the hunting legacy. Every hunt and every story is designed to educate, inspire, and entertain. This is more than hunting. This is the 11th commandment. Welcome to episode number 2 of season 2 of the 11th commandment, Spook. My friend, it is exciting to be able to talk about hunting, which is now kicked off in some states, and you are right around the corner in Tennessee, and we are 1 week away here in Florida, man.
Yeah, it's here we are, showtime. I mean, I had somebody I know killed a really nice buck here in Tennessee on that early season velvet hunt, 186, I think it was,
Ooh,
about an
okay.
hour from here,
Nice.
and a really nice deer. And then I got a picture of a really nice deer that a 16-year-old killed in outside of Wichita this morning. That's probably 190 typical. And so, yeah, they're already starting to hit the ground.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Kansas, I know you've made a few trips out there and you got a few deer on the radar. So I know everybody's going to be excited to hear you continue with that journey. So we're going to do a couple of things today.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of early season, I want to talk about, getting in your head around some early season, September, October hunting. Some people say October can be a lull. I agree, disagree. I've shot some nice bucks that we can talk about today in October. I know you shot some nice deer, but there are definitely some strategy around hunting September and October that's obviously going to be different than the rut and late season.
Right.
But before we jump into that, my friend, I just want to give everybody an update on some of the things that you and I have been working on. And it's really a reflection of the support we've gotten from the 11th Commandment community, your Spook Nation family over the years. And that is, we're going to be airing some of your 200-inch buck hunts over the next several months. And I'm not talking one or two, I'm talking several of these giants, which are going to be awesome hunts. We've launched the season 2 of the new podcast format. We had Danny last week from Flawless Whitetail, which I thought, she did an amazing job. And people, if you haven't checked out that podcast, you got to see what Danny's doing with the minerals, food plots, and protein. We launched our 11 Commandment, 11commandhunt.com brand new website last week. Looks amazing. And we've got a lot of great content in there. We also have, a whole section in there for your land management services, the new look for the YouTube channel, and then our relationship and partnership with Carbon TV. So a ton of stuff that's right around the corner that's happening, my friend.
Yeah, we're really excited. I appreciate all the hard work you've done. I know it's been a lot. I'm sorry. I'm so non-techie. I'm not much help on that. I'm just know how to talk.
Well, I need you killing big deer too, brother.
I can do that. But no, we're really excited, blessed. Like you said, appreciate the support. And I get so many comments on social media, just guys saying, man, we really love it. Hey, when's the next episode? And so it's awesome. And yeah, I mean, this is what we've been working towards, where we can show highlights and footage of the bucks, and instead of just while we're talking about it, now we can actually show some of the footage, which I think is what's going to make it like extra special. Because hey, that's what we all want to see, and hear about how it all came together. But yeah, I've loved talking about early season in October. There are actually 2 different seasons in themselves, but yeah, that's no problem.
Well, and look, we're going to kick off a little bit. I know we've already talked about Shaq and that amazing Kentucky early season velvet buck, but I want to dig a little bit in there, and he's actually that episode is going to air next week.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about your approach to hunting Shaq in September. Yeah, no worries.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
Yeah.
don't know why I
So
did that.
let's talk about how you approached Shaq. You obviously knew that deer was on that farm, but it's early season. You got weather. So let's talk about that, and then we'll get into stand setup. And I know you made some
Hmm.
adjustments on stand versus blind. So, like, just level set as far as knowing the deer's there. Where do you start?
So obviously, having a deer like that is where it all starts. And then when I looked at it's about a 20-acre bean field, and one whole side of that bean field up the hillside was all cut really hard. Timber was cut really hard, probably 5 or 6 years prior. So it had gotten really thick. And every picture we had of this deer was on the upper side of it, but that was the west side. And
Yeah.
so my thing is if you get up there and the wind's out of the west and it's blowing out into the beans and you got deer coming in, then that's hard to control. And if it's winds out of you know, anything out of the east, really any direction, it made it hard to set on the west side of the field. I thought
Okay.
that if we got on the east side of the field, we had a good logging road we could walk in and not disturb the bean field. And I thought that if I just went in there and doctored up the beans with antler grow and spread corn out with corn coat everywhere in about a 30-yard circle and just got it all juiced up, that they would all come down there. Well, all the deer that were coming in that field did start concentrating there except for Shaq. I never got a picture of him around the blind in my setup. Opening
Okay.
day, we go get in the blind. Second deer out is Shaq, and he's on the other side. He's on the west side of the field, and he doesn't even look down there at our way.
Yep.
I told JD, I
Yeah.
said, he's not coming down here. We watched him for
No.
45 minutes. I said, he's not coming down here, and he's not going to come down here. He ain't been down here in a month.
Yeah.
And I
Yep.
said, we're going to have to get up there with him. So that was on opening day. The next 2 days, it had really warmed up, got hot. And then on the fourth day of season, the front was supposed to move through and rain and then cool off into the low to mid 70s. So I said, what we're going to do, we're going to load the truck up with brush. We're going to go there and we're going to set a ground blind up, kind of just move a little bit north of where he's been coming in. So hopefully
Mm-hmm.
he'll come in above us. And so we can cheat the wind a little bit. And being in a blind, having the ozonics, obviously, is very helpful. And so we did. We went in there on the third day, middle of the day. I said no talking, no nothing. We're just going to clear our spot out, set it up, brush it in real good, sprayed corn coat. I'm sorry, antler grow on the beans, and just got everything all ready. Put a camera up and got out of there.
So
And
before
yeah,
you go anymore, so when I was watching the hunt,
yeah,
you guys had a system, and I think, was it the ground blind buddy or the jack or something that you used
tree
to help
jack.
set all the tree
Yeah,
jack? Now, is that something you still use, or can you improvise because it looked really
sometimes. So what's
cool?
awesome about the tree jack is you can set. I'm not even sure he's making them anymore. I know you could probably get it. It's you set the system up in front of the blind, and it has these cups, and you can cut a cedar tree or
Yeah,
a big
so I
oak
saw.
limb and set it down in there and screw down the sides. It's almost like a Christmas tree holder, except there's several of them. And then you can just stand them up, and it works awesome. And it breaks up the dome part of the blind. Then you go in your blind and you take you some snips and just snip you out some little shooting holes. It's phenomenal. And so yeah,
Yeah, it
so
looked super cool.
that works great. It's he's got them for you can use them in the tree or on the ground. Obviously, they're easier on the ground, but they're well worth it to break you up and hide you and hide the
Okay.
blind. And so I love the system. Uh,
Okay. No, I saw that and I wanted
yeah.
to ask about it. So, all right, go on. I messed you up.
Yeah, no, you're fine. So the next day, sure enough, front moves through around noon. It rains an inch. We get in there that afternoon about 3:30, and it is beautiful. The air's crisp and clean, and the humidity's dropped out, and it's 75 and sunny, and got a light northwest wind, which was
Yep.
good.
Which
We had our
needed.
ozonics going. We're sitting there, kind of the sun's not down yet. Really you're expecting the deer. About the time the sun setting down over the trees, you see a doe here and there, and then usually you're expecting to see the buck you're after 30, 40 minutes before dark. We're sitting there, and I hear a little something, and I glance over to my right. My bow's leaned up against the blind, kind of. JD, the camera's not on. We hadn't seen a deer, and Shaq steps out about 5 yards to the right of us. I could have took a blowgun and darted him in the neck. That's how close he was.
Yep.
And it was just, and I just grabbed JD's arm. And I just pointed. I just grabbed his arm and I just pointed like that right there, And so then he looked back, looked around, he looked over there towards the blind, like it was a little bit different. Now here we are. Remember, the blind hadn't been set up, but about 28 hours.
Yep.
Just set it up the morning before, and he is 5 yards from us, and he can't recognize that we're there. That's the difference in a good
That's
camo
a good
job
blind right there.
Yeah. So he wags his tail. He kind of relaxed, but then he turns and walks around behind us, and I can hear him walking. And I don't hear that great, but JD's like, and I said, yeah, I could hear him behind us. Then all of a sudden he gets closer and closer and closer. And Brian, I can hear him myself. And like I said, I don't hear, he's sniffing the blind. I can hear him.
Wow.
He is, I'm sitting inside the blind. Here's the blind. Yep. He can't be over this far away.
Yeah.
And there again, I just think that it's another one of those situations where having ozonics was just a game changer. I just don't see us. And truthfully, I didn't think we was going to get away with it even at that, with him up there sniffing the blind.
Yeah.
And
the odds are clearly against you when he's that close.
Yeah, I was just like, but what the good part about it was, JD was able to get the camera ready. I got my bow ready. We're ready now. And we heard him walking, and he didn't blow. He didn't run. He didn't, just heard him walking. Sounded very normal and casual. And boom, he pops right back out beside us again. Well, so this time we're ready. But I still can't shoot because he's kind of on JD's end.
You can see on the angle of how he comes out.
So he has to come out in front of us. We got to let him get on out there a little bit. And of course he did. And oh my gosh, it was so beautiful. The footage, not many times do you get to have that crisp of a afternoon hunt with the moon, with the sun still up. And it was just one of the most beautiful afternoons and hunts with the velvet. His velvet was still on. And of course smoked him, and JD kept him in the camera till the angle got bad and he couldn't twist anymore. And just as the deer went out of the frame, right in the edge of the beans, I saw his tail and his butt go up over his head, and heard just,
you knew it was done, baby.
Oh, I went to screaming and hollering, and I said, he's down, Jay, we lose our minds, and it was really awesome. I got so much I don't know. Just satisfaction.
It's gratification, man.
Seeing,
absolutely.
Yeah, just out of seeing how jubilant JD was. And then I called my guy at West Kentucky Boat Company and Elijah, and I said, dude, are you going to come have your picture made with this buck, or are you just going to sit over there and watch TV all night? He's like, oh, you ain't killed that deer. I said, dude, I'm sitting here holding. I said, I'm holding him in my hand. He's like, no way. They just went to him and his brother went to screaming, and and of course they got over there, and we were always posed him up, and we had these beautiful yellow weed flowers behind us, and the sun was just perfect. Beautiful. Oh, it was just like, it was an epic hunt. But in saying all that, the blessing was it was early season. The beans were still green. You've got a week or two to make something happen. We know when they shed their velvet, sometimes they can disappear. Beans turn yellow, they're going to change. Acorns start falling, they're for sure going to change. We got about 6 to 10 days to make something happen.
Yeah.
And I could have been stubborn and just said, "Hey, this is our setup. He's going to come over here eventually. We're going to." But I just felt like we had to go for it. We had to get
Yeah.
over there with him and try to make it happen. And I believe that our attention to detail with putting the blind out, getting a good clean base, putting the blind down super flat, covering up all the cracks and taping any holes and keeping it super tight with the ozonics and just a setup all came together. Going in there and we cut our brush and hauled it and didn't talk, didn't say anything. We were clean. We had rubber gloves on. We set everything up. I mean, I think that all these things are the culmination of, you know, the first time we sat in that blind, we killed him.
Yeah.
And
So
now early season and just right quick, so many
yeah, yeah,
times, I mean, you're going to have to find most of the time a bean field or an alfalfa field or somewhere where they're feeding. Of course, in Kentucky, you can hunt over feed, and sometimes that works for people, but still, they're still hitting most of the time. They're going to be hitting the green stuff early,
yeah.
and so you got to find those places.
No, and I've experienced that in Georgia as well. And if you can get those bean fields and that
Yep.
food source, that they're gonna, not to say obviously they're not gonna hit the corn, but if they
Yep.
can get on some good beans and some of that green stuff, they're gonna absolutely love it. So one of the things that I've noticed in that hunt that you did, and I've done some extreme things as well early season, but it looked like when you were walking in, you were wearing just, you know, was there shorts, tank top, and then you got dressed in the blind. And I've done the same thing. I've
Mhm.
literally carried my stuff. I've had baby wipes, especially in, the Southeast. It
Yeah.
gets hot early season, and then I'll get dressed in the tree or in the blind and wipe down. And look, does it mask everything? Absolutely not. But if you're wearing everything and you're sweating and sweating and sweating, I think it just amplifies the
Oh, for
odds of a
sure.
shifting wind and you
For
getting
sure.
busted, even if you're using ozonics.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, obviously we don't show it, but I mean, I've walked to the blind or the stand in my underwear before. And
Spook.
yeah, just, huh?
I said TMI, brother.
Hey,
Kidding you.
hey,
Too much information.
that's according to who
Poor,
you talk
poor
to.
JD. Listen, I'm kidding,
Marty
but
thinks it's money. So
listen, I guess so. But Marty's not filming you.
I just said sometimes. I didn't that day.
That's
But
true.
but
Okay.
I mean, and I've actually hunted in shorts before, you know.
Yeah.
And but yeah, that's old jokes aside, yeah, the last thing I want to do is, I mean, we've actually I've left the truck 30 or 45 minutes earlier than I would have normally if I had a really long walk, just so I could go really slow and
Yeah.
stop and so that trying not to work up a sweat. And
Yep.
so because I mean, generally for me, my experience hunting afternoons, it's going to happen the last one between at the earliest an hour and a half before dark up till dark, even with the does
Yep.
coming out. And I remember in the past, some of the guys that I've worked with before, it's like, oh, what time you want to meet? Go. I mean, I got a place here at home that I don't even get in the tree until an hour before dark. And they're
Yep.
and they're like, what? And I was like, man, they ain't coming out to this time. I was like,
Yeah.
dude, I can't tell you how many times we've went and got in the tree or the blind, sat there 5 minutes, and boom, here comes a doe. And they're just
Yep.
like, that's crazy. And I know that's
Yep.
pushing it really tight, but I mean, I know some of these places well enough just to know that's the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but early season can be phenomenal if you've got a really good food source and they've been on it all summer. And you don't have a lot of time, like I said, to make it happen, but it can be awesome.
Well, The other thing too that you and I have talked about, and I know you do this, and I've done it more and more, is only hunt the afternoons.
Oh, for
There are
sure.
unique situations that the mornings work, but most of the time, at least where I've hunted, if you hunt that morning, and we're going to get into a few of the bucks that I've hunted in Canada, but the afternoon is the only way to go
Yeah, yeah.
in
I
that
mean,
early season.
I would say only 10% of the time you're going to have a spot in the mornings when deer are feeding and especially early season where you can get in there without messing it up and hunt it. And a lot of times, if you do that, even if you have a really good spot, a lot of times I know a couple of guys that's had a lot of success in the mornings in early season, but they're catching the deer coming back and they know like deer's bedding in a 5 acre
Exactly.
CRP
Yep.
field or 10 acre CRP
For
field
sure.
or something. And so they're getting there's a trail coming out of it and they've got enough knowledge of the deer and the trail camera pictures they figured out that that's his. And so they're getting in there an hour before daylight and sitting in a tree and they're shooting the deer literally 5-10 minutes after daylight coming back to the bed. But that's extremely rare and
Yep.
hard to do. And the chances are you're gonna mess up more than you're gonna
Correct.
accomplish. Yep.
Now, will you have, let's say, early season Kansas versus, other places? Do you have a different philosophy based on states and different farms that you're hunting, or is it pretty consistent as far as, sticking to afternoons, food sources?
It's pretty
Or
like in Kansas and Oklahoma sometimes what I'll do, of course I did this on one buck in Kentucky, is you're glassing and watching from a high spot somewhere or a vantage point and you try to spot the deer. He's moved out of the beans or just to the edge of the beans or alfalfa or cornfield, and he's working his way down, working an edge somewhere headed to his bed. And then if the wind's right and the idea is conducive, you can try a stalk. And so
Mhm.
I've actually had, some luck doing that, just spotting the deer from, 5, 6, 7, 800 yards away or half a mile away and then planning a
And just go
stalk.
after 'em.
Yeah.
Yep.
And a lot of times when you do that, it seems like they're not as it's not like you're over here at the food source when you spook them if it doesn't work. You're over here
That's
like where
exactly right.
they've been bedding and they don't take it as seems like it doesn't bother them as much if something doesn't go right and you
Mhm.
and so I like that. That's one of the fun things about Kansas and Oklahoma and some of these places where you can see them from a ways off and watch them and see what they do. Now, I also like if it's not a good setup to make a stalk, then you just watch and you try to just, figure and you say, okay, well, we know he's bedded right there. It makes sense. He's going to come back to the food source this afternoon. So we're excited about getting over there and setting up, and hopefully he gets up and comes in before dark. So a lot of times, too, that what I just said is if you see a deer leave, let's just say a bean field or alfalfa field in the morning, you're watching him from a half a mile away through the spot and scope of the binoculars, and he goes a mile or two to bed or goes out of sight 2 miles away, there's a lot less chance he's going to get there in the afternoon early enough. What you hope is happening is that he's bedding, less than a mile, less than a half a mile
Mhm.
from the food
Yeah.
source, and you can feel good about the fact he's going to get there in time. And I've seen
Well, you're
deer.
talking a lot about bow hunting versus rifle hunting. Obviously, if you're rifle hunting, then you have it, but you're talking a lot more about from a bow hunting standpoint,
Exactly.
which,
Yeah.
a lot of guys
Everything
are
I'm
going to be
talking
doing.
about is mainly now with a gun. Obviously, you can set up further away, and it's easier to catch them in that
Yeah.
transition period, and which is what can happen. Like right now, you got juvenile season in Kansas, and then it'll go to muzzleloader season. Well, you can cut deer off with a with a rifle or a muzzleloader and catch them in between easier
Hmm.
than, and like if you're glassing a place in the mornings with a, gun or muzzleloader and you see a deer headed a direction, it's way easier to get set up 200 yards from him somewhere than it is to get within 30, 40 yards.
Yeah,
And
it's
and so that's true. And that can be fun. I've done that with Coleman one time in Kansas, and I had him on the juvenile hunt, and we almost killed a really big buck by doing that. And I mean, I think we run almost a mile trying to
hmm
catch up with this buck, and he it just didn't quite work out, but we got really close. And so yeah, it's a little different with a gun, but
hmm
yeah, I'm mostly talking as if I'm a bow hunting the deer.
No, 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 absolutely. So the other thing that I want to talk about is getting in and out of the stand. And, we've talked about whether it's you have somebody pick you up, if you have a tractor.
Hmm.
And I know when we've hunted Canada on Ben's place, we've had a lot of success. We hunt the mornings, but we'll hunt the other side of the farm, nowhere near the
Hmm.
alfalfa field where these deer are coming in and out of. We'll only do that in the afternoon. And what Ben will do is he drives, he's got one of those little diesel
Hmm.
Gator
Hmm.
ATV side by sides. And those deer, you can literally drive by them and they don't pay any
Hmm.
attention to it. If you were to
Yeah,
drive a side by side or anything else, they lose their mind.
yeah, they're
But
conditioned to it. Yep.
yep, they're conditioned to it. It sounds like his tractor, and so he'll always come pick us up,
Yeah.
and he does that all the time. So you get dropped off, you get picked up, or if we're hunting there, he lets us have somebody do that for us. So I know that's really important to you as far as in those scenarios where you got to be really mindful of getting in and getting out and either have
Yeah.
somebody pick you up or wait till way after dark. And
Exactly.
sometimes even I've even gotten out of the stand if I just don't think it's going to happen before all the deer get into the field at dark, and then you blow everything out that way.
Yeah. 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 I mean, you got to be conscious of it. You got to make plans for it, and you got to have a plan for that. And it can go all the way up until you can plan it ahead of time where you see that it's going to be a problem. You can use round bales to create yourself a entrance and exit. You can use the Masantas or Macantus hedge, warm season grasses. If it's a place that
Yep.
you're going to be hunting before early in the spring, you can plant stuff. There's things. I mean, I've left strips of corn standing,
Yep.
and different things, just trying to create myself a way in and out. And like I said, I've stacked round bales up in front of a blind so they didn't see me climb down, and I could walk out and have three or four round bales there and keep it between me and the deer and crawl out. But most of the time we try to work it out where somebody can come pick us up. Yeah, early season can be some of the most fun hunting because it's because a lot of times you see a lot of deer and they're coming to the feed. They're still on that summertime pattern. It's just fun, it's early. It's kind of a good way to get started into the season and loosened up and getting in the swing of things. And it's kind of like preseason in the NFL. So it's fun.
No, it is. And to that point, I love early season as well. I've shot some great deer in Georgia.
Hmm.
I shot a 193 that was just an absolute slob of a deer early season. And it was, get everything right, win right, not hunt for a few days.
Yeah.
And then the other two bucks that absolutely were amazing hunts were in Canada, and Billy and I had shot a 170 buck that we call crab claw. That was the first week of September, and it was again that very patternable
Yeah.
alfalfa bucks coming to those open fields, and where we shot him was kind of that only place I think we could get. I mean, it's a couple 100-acre alfalfa field, and it was
Yeah.
hard to narrow him down, but we it was a long shot, but we got it done. And then another buck that Caleb and I hunted, we called Ghost. Now he was an October buck, so I wanted to
Yeah.
transition a little bit into the
Yeah.
October timeframe. And this
Yeah.
deer we had shot And the thing about Ghost Spook is Ben had seen him he had sheds from him every year for the last 4 years. This deer was 6 years old,
Yeah.
and he only showed up in October. He showed up for a week, and then he would disappear, and he happened to show up. We were there that week, and he
That's
said he could
awesome.
pop up, and he did, and we shot him, and it was an amazing hunt. But what is your thought process as you get to October, and how do things change how you approach your deer then?
So traditionally, October can be very challenging. They've shed their velvet. Their food source has changed a lot of times. Beans have turned yellow. Maybe a lot of things can happen. A farmer cut the alfalfa for the last time for the year. Corn's being cut. There's the corn. The combine's leaving a little bit of excess corn or beans on the ground. So they just everything changes. Now, a lot of times you still got warm weather. Uh, but what I love about October is if you're on a deer and you've been getting pictures of a deer, he's coming to a food source. Maybe it's an oak tree. Maybe you're in a state like Ohio and Kansas and Oklahoma, where in Kentucky where you can feed. Maybe he's coming to your food source, your buck muffin or your corn or protein or whatever it is, and you've been getting some periodic appearances and pictures of the deer. When that red moon hits in October, you've got about 2 afternoons. And especially if you're getting several visitations from this particular deer on your food source, and most time it's at night, it's been hot,
Mhm.
whatever. You're getting a lot of nocturnal pictures. You better be in the stand those 2 evenings because there's a really, really, really good chance he's going to daylight one or both of those 2 afternoons. And I've seen it
Got it.
happen over and over, and we all talk about it. We've all seen it happen. The Eskers, Adam Hayes, the Drurys, Lee, Lakowski, all of us have seen it happen those 2 or 3 evenings. And like 2 years ago, I got a cell cam picture. Hadn't seen this deer in 2 months. And on the first evening of the red moon, I get him on my camera he's on the opposite side of the plot. I can't even,
Uh-huh.
it's dingy enough that it's blurry enough that I can't see specifics, but I can see this
He's
much.
big.
I can tell he's
Yep.
big. I told Marty, I said, I'm going to Illinois tomorrow evening. And I said, I got him on camera. Tomorrow evening is going to be
Yep.
the evening. And so I, went to Illinois and first deer out, and I had a phenomenal food plot. I mean, it was clover and brassicas like this. It looked it was a flawless whitetail plot that was phenomenal. I had just gotten the right reins, and he's hanging right there. I just hung him up
Mhm. Yep.
last week, and he stepped out in the plot at like 10 yards, and so it was probably I shot him out of a redneck blind. I was fortunate enough that blind I had a redneck blind set up in that spot right in the edge of that big thicket, and it's a redneck bow blind with the long
Yeah, yeah.
window that I helped design about 20 years ago, by the way, and just throw that little bit in there. But it was that I've seen that. I can't even tell you how many times. I mean, maybe 15 times over the last 30 years. The buck I was after showed up in October on that red moon, and I'm telling you, when it leaves, it's like they disappear off the planet sometimes.
Uh, well, and have you also had other bucks that you didn't know were in the area show up in October as well?
Not very often. I have never, I mean, very, very seldom. I mean, most of the time I know about the deer that I'm chasing. I haven't had, now I've had that happen more in late November and December than October.
Okay.
Uh, Now I've had deer that I expected to show up that I hadn't seen maybe since the deer at Ben's, where we hadn't
Yep.
seen him since last year, and he shows up in October. He's had that consistency, and so like this buck I'm just telling about, I hadn't seen him in 2 or 3 months, and when I did, it was in the neighbor's bean field. It wasn't even on mine. But see, the beans had turned yellow, had already been.
So he went to a different food source.
So he came over. So I had alfalfa and brassicas and corn and soybeans, and I had all this stuff planted. So when all the stuff he was on in the summer was gone, then he came in. And
Yeah.
it's funny, a friend of mine up there, a young guy that he's like, man, I've been seeing those two big bucks in that bean field. And I said, does anybody else know about them? He said, I don't think so. He said, I haven't seen anybody. He said, but the deer were like to spot them. They were like 1,000 yards from the road, and the beans were like almost like over your belly. And so he just happened to catch their head sticking out of the beans with the binoculars one evening,
Yeah.
and then he started setting up with a spotting scope and looking, and he could see them. Most people couldn't see. You couldn't see them with the naked eye,
Yeah.
and from the road, which was awesome, because I'm afraid if somebody else had seen them, these two
100%.
bucks were slobs, and
Yeah.
so uh, so it worked out. And I had thought that once the crops changed, they would show up on me, and they did. So worked out awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else in October that you really keep
Well,
in mind
there's
and
a lot of
prepare
things you
for?
could do. So back in the days when I was doing a lot of woods hunting in Tennessee and Kentucky, and land between the lakes, and you're hunting hills and hollows, and the acorns are falling, I would just try to find fresh white oak trees that were dropping, that had buck sign under them in October, and
Yeah.
pick a day, maybe when a front moves through, or maybe it was cloudy, rainy day. I'd put my stand on my, back then I had Summit stands. I'd put a Summit on my back and head in there and go climb a tree and sit there. And I killed a lot of deer like that.
Yeah.
Uh, so it was a lot of fun. It was very challenging. And I had a lot of times when I didn't kill them. I don't remember those.
Mhm.
I try to put those away and
Yep.
forget about those dry days. I remember the days when I did get them. And, but,
Yeah. Again, I don't feel too sorry for you, but go ahead, keep going.
well, you should. It's a lot of pain and agony during
Uh-huh.
that time.
Uh-huh.
But, it was, so I mean, yeah, sometimes you just gotta get out, but also believe that those bucks are gonna show up at the end of October, and the last few days of October, you're getting into the pre-rut, and a lot of people think Halloween's one of the best days of the season.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I was born on Halloween. That's just God was sending me a message. But that you need to
I
be
think
a
so.
giant whitetail hunter.
That's it.
But
Well,
anyway,
I shot my first Halloween buck in South Dakota, 3 or 4 years ago, and I have to
yeah,
say that was one of the things I always wanted to do.
yeah,
And
yeah,
we shot a just slob of a 7-year-old South Dakota 350
yeah,
pound uh, deer on Halloween. So that's cool.
yeah. That's all. I tell you, I used to pray for cloudy, heavy, overcast, sprinkling rain afternoons in October, and hunting food plots and food sources, and did very well. I mean, did
Yeah.
did very well with the weather change. A lot of times the weather can make, obviously, a front moving through in October, and let's just say you're getting pictures at night. Well, I'll tell you another story. So I had a deer, he's hanging up in here, a Tennessee buck. He was 160. He's 7.5 years old. Had a pit. So I was actually at Milk River hunting with the real tree. And my cameraman calls me and says, we've got a big one on one of the cameras. And I said, where is it at? And he told me. So over the course of so I got back home, went along a week. It was in the 80s. We got maybe one more picture of him at night, midnight or something. So like, I want to say it's like middle of October.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there's a front coming. The highs have been in the 80s. It's the high that day was like 59, and it's
Oh,
real overcast and dreary, and misty. And I said, today's the day. He said, you think so?
yep.
And there was a lot of acorns that year, so the food plot hunting wasn't very good.
Correct.
But another thing about that, I found that when deer have gorged themselves 2 or 3 weeks on acorns, those acorns are real acidic, that they will look for some green stuff to help with that. 'Cause I don't know whether it's what it is, but I think that Grant and I have talked about it some. They want something green to go with it. They won't get much. They're not going to stay long, but they're going to come in every now and then and eat
Yep.
something green.
100% believe that.
And got in the stand. We didn't see a deer up until just maybe 30 minutes before dark. And the only deer that we saw was him. And he steps
Love it,
out in the
man.
plot, and I just reached and touched my cameraman. I said, "There he is." He's like, "No way!" And so he kind of had his back to me, so he's facing
Yeah, yeah,
one
yeah.
side of the food plot, and I'm facing the other. And I kind of hit him on the leg, and I just did like this. He was about 100 yards away at the time, and he walks right up under us and just grazing up under us. We're in kind of a black oak that's got some little funky acorns under it. So he just feeds his way up under the tree, and I shot him right down through the
Mm.
top of the back. And only deer we saw. Didn't even see a doe or a fawn that evening because they were in the acorns. But I
Yeah.
think he's older. He'd been gorging on acorns, and so he wanted some green stuff, And
Don't you love it when a plan comes together like that?
oh, so and my cameraman was one of the first deer that particular cameraman and I had killed together, and he was just like, man, he's like, what made you think? I said, dude, I've hunted, I prayed for years for these kinds of afternoons, for this misty, rainy type afternoon. I said, I'm telling
Yep.
you, big bucks love to move in these heavy, overcast, rainy days. And I said, they'll just do things that they won't normally do. And I can't tell you how
Yep.
many times we've killed really good deer doing that.
Yeah. No, what a great story. So we'll wrap this up, but we've got a couple of things I think for people to take away as far as kind of that approach to how you hunted Shaq that early season, September. You got that window of time that you said before the beans turn or other food sources turn. And then
Yeah.
some of these deer may still be in velvet. When they rub that velvet, they're going to obviously change
Yeah.
a little behavior, adjust to a different food source.
Yeah.
Setting your blind if you're going to be in a ground blind, taking the time to, brush it in, to have that overhang, that shadow, managing your sweat as best you can, getting in.
Yeah.
And then afternoons are key.
If I'm in a ground blind and I've got ozonics or in a redneck or some kind of that I can control the flow a little bit, I don't mind it. But I'm not willing to risk it on an average day. If
Got
it's
it.
80, 87 and the wind's out of the south and you haven't had him on camera in a couple of days or whatever, or the moon's not right, I just don't think that's it. I think it's a good time to take a break, maybe go scout somewhere else or take the wife out on a date or something, because I think it's better to wait on good weather. And if I've got good weather or a good moon and the wind's wrong, but I've got my setup is right and I trust my ozonics, I'm going to go,
Got it.
even if
Okay.
the wind's
That
wrong.
makes sense.
That's how much I trust my plan. Uh, but if if it's hot and it's just the wind, especially if the wind's not right, and I've gone on some days. I remember one day I was sitting in a restaurant talking to Dad, And I think I've told you this story. I had on a red shirt, blue jeans. I'd been running the bulldozer all day, had diesel fuel and hydraulic fluid all over me, stunk, had my work boots on. I ate uh, supper with Dad at the restaurant, and it was early season because it didn't get dark till like 8:30. He's like, "What are you
Yep.
fixing to do?" I said, "I'm gonna go climb a tree." He's like, "What?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Like that?" I said, "Yep, just like I am." I said, "Because the spot I had with a northwest wind or a west wind, they couldn't." They're not going to.
They
They're
couldn't
not going
smell
to
you.
come behind me. This is one of them places I didn't have to worry about anything coming from behind me. And I killed I wasn't quite as disciplined back then as far as you were passed up, and I shot a buck that was probably in the 150s and was only 4 years old, but was a really nice deer that came into the food plot that evening. And really, it wasn't the red moon, and there hadn't been a front
Yeah.
come through. It just worked out.
Yeah.
But
And sometimes that's just how it is, my man. It
yeah,
just works out.
I just, I hadn't been in a few days. We'd been working on some of our projects, and I just then the wind had changed, and I was like, "Hey, I'm just going to go sit in the tree for an hour." I got up. That's that spot I was telling you about where I normally don't get there until an hour or so before
Hmm.
dark. I just run out there, jumped up in a tree,
Loved it.
killed him.
Killed him and
Yeah, that was
done
before
deal.
I was filming too. That's how long ago that's
No, no,
been.
no. I got you.
That that's probably been a solid 30 years ago.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Early days.
Yeah.
Well, my man, great stories today, and I think some great tips that hopefully people will be able to pull out of that. And just remind everybody, go check out some of the things we talked about earlier, the website, the new YouTube channel, and we're going to be posting again on Carbon TV with a lot to come and some awesome hunts coming up of your spook of some giants that people may never have seen or may have not seen in a while. So, brother man, thank you for today,
Oh,
and
thank you.
we'll be
Fun as
we'll be
always.
talking soon, my man.
Sounds awesome.